Hello, it's Simon Zutshi here, and I'm the author of Property Magic, the Amazon #1 property bestseller, and also I'm the founder of the Property Investors Network, which is the largest organisation of network meetings in the UK to help you become a more successful investor. Now in this video, I'd like to give you an introduction to one of the best strategies to help you give massive cash flow from your investment properties. It's a strategy we teach in depth on our training programs, but in this video I want to give you a little bit of an introduction, a flavour for it, and also bust some of the myths around this particular strategy. So the strategy is multi-let properties and houses of multiple occupation. Let me explain how this works. So you might have a house which you can rent out on a single let basis to a family for maybe, I don't know, £700 per month. Now, by the time you pay your mortgage and your insurance, you may not make a huge amount of money from that property. And this is one of the things that puts many people off. They think, I'm going to have hundreds of properties to be able to replace my income. Well, with this strategy, we can maximize the rent just by understanding the construction and the configuration of the house. So instead of renting the whole house to one family or one couple, what we do instead is we rent individual rooms at a much higher rate. So we might have, say, 3 bedrooms on the first floor. There might be an attic room we could rent out. And actually there might even be a reception room downstairs that we can also rent out. And let's say we get maybe £350 per month per room. So 350 times 5 would be £1,750 per month instead of £700 per month. So a massive uplift in the rent. Now, to make it really convenient and easy for the people who live in these rooms, what we do is we include all of the bills. So we need to take the cost of the bills out as well, which might be, say, £350, which means we can end up with £1,400 in rental income instead of £700. Typically, this kind of house should make you £500 to £1,500 profit every single month. What that means for you is, instead of having hundreds of houses, all you need is maybe 4 to 6 properties to be able to replace your income. And that's very achievable in a year if that's what you want to do. So let me bust some of the myths around HMOs and multi-lets. And I'm going to do that by explaining it through an acronym, which is multi-let. So when you think about these kind of properties, here are some of the things you need to think about. First of all, M is for management. Now, what puts a lot of people off this kind of multi-let property, they think, wow, it's going to be a lot of work. And it is more work than a single let property. But what we have to recognize is the income is so much greater that it's kind of worth it. Now, personally, I don't like managing my properties because I like to have my free time. I like a passive income. But if you want to manage these, it doesn't actually take that much to do, and you could certainly do it part-time. The challenge is most letting agents don't understand how to do this. So if you want someone else to do it for you, what you probably need to do is find another investor who's in your area, who's got these kind of properties, and they want to make some extra income by managing other people's properties. That's exactly what I did. I met someone at one of our network meetings, and they now manage all of my multi-lets for me. So you don't have to manage it yourself. The next U is for utilities. Now, on these kind of properties, all the utilities are included, so the tenant pays one easy, simple payment every single month. So you as a landlord are going to pay the gas, the electric, the TV license, the council tax, very importantly, the broadband internet. Now, most people who live in these kind of houses, they need, that's what they feel, they need the internet. And it's really important you don't try and save money and skimp and get the cheapest package. You want to get the absolute best package you can with a massive download facility, unlimited usage, to make sure you've got a really good service that can give great quality to your tenants. That's critically important. If the internet goes down, you're certainly going to hear about it. It's going to be a big problem for the tenants. So all the utilities are included. That is apart from student HMOs, where normally they pay for the bills themselves. The other thing you have to consider is it takes a little bit of time to get things like broadband set up. So as soon as you get a house, one of the first things you should do is book in your broadband to make sure that's available. The next thing is licensing. And again, this is something that puts off a lot of people. They say, wow, if I'm going to have to license these houses, is that going to be a load of hassle and expense? And yes, there's a process you have to go through. You might need to spend some money on the property because you need to bring it up to the required safety standards. Whether it's licensed or not, you should be providing good quality, safe accommodation for your students and your other tenants. But you should have things like fire doors, interlinked smoke alarms, and what you need to do is contact your local council, speak to the HMO licensing department, and get the information from them as to what their requirements are in the local area. Now, typically, if you have a house with 5 or more bedrooms on 3 or more floors, you will need a mandatory license. Do check with the local council because it does vary from council to council, but those are the general requirements. What that means is you need to make sure it's up to safety standards, you need to fill in lots of forms, apply for a license, pay for a fee which lasts for 5 years, and maintain the property to a good standard, which you should be doing anyway. So don't be put off by licensing. It's not as bad as you might think, and once you've done it once, it's actually a fairly straightforward process. The next T is for tenants. Now, tenants are really important. These are the people who are going to pay you. And, I believe that if you have a multi-let property, there's actually less risk than if you have a single-let property. At the end of the day, if you have a single-let property and you've got no tenants, well, you've got no one making any contribution to the mortgage, which means you need to pay it. With a multi-let property, it's very unlikely you're going to have an empty property. In fact, usually the first 3 or so tenants will pretty much cover the mortgage and the bills, and the people on top of that are your profit. Now, the nature of these tenants is they'll be transient, they move around. In fact, there are 4 types of tenants that will go into this type of property. The first is students. Students tend to come as a group of friends and they'll rent the individual rooms, but they might sign one contract between them. The next group of tenants is young professionals, people who have been students, they've graduated, they've gone and start their first job, and you know what, they quite like the idea of living with other people, and also they can't really afford to live on their own. Living in a little studio is the cheapest thing you can do, but you've got to pay bills on top of that. The rent in multi-lets should be less than it costs to live in a studio. So it's really cost effective for people, it's convenient, they know exactly how much the bills are going to be every month because they're all included, and people like that kind of lifestyle. So first group is students, second group is young professionals. You might also get people who have not been to college, they're just normal working people, they work in shops, factories, they don't want to live at home, and it's more cost effective for them to live in a shared house than it is to live on their own. The final group that will rent this kind of property are people who may be on benefits, local housing authority benefit. Personally, I don't like renting to that type of person in this kind of property because if they're hanging around all day, more likely people are going to annoy each other, get on each other's nerves, and the environment within the house is really important. So personally, my preferred market is young professionals, people who are all working, they're out of the house during the day, they're hardly often in the evening anyway because they're all out doing things with their friends, they just pay the rent on time, it's nice and easy to work with them. The next I is for information. And a big tip within your HMO is to have a notice board on the way in that's got contact details of what they need to do if there are no problems. It's got the rules of how the house works. The thing about these kind of houses, it's a little community. People need to work together, they need to do the washing up, keep the house tidy. So you want to state the rules and make sure it's really clear exactly what's involved. The other thing is you might want to provide some information as to what are the local facilities, restaurant, takeaway menus, where the local supermarket is, the numbers for the local doctors, dentists, really make it easy for the people who are living in the house. If you have all that information there as you show people around, potential tenants, it shows you a good landlord wanting to help people settle into the property and into the local area. So those are some of the things you might want to think about. Let's talk about the property in particular. L is for location. As with all property investing, location is really, really important. This type of property is generally in an urban area. It might be in the suburbs in a city or close to a town centre in a smaller town. You've got to make sure that people want to live in that area because predominantly there's a high demand for accommodation due to employment. Or if it's university, if it's students, you want to be very close to the university campus because let's face it, students are often very lazy, they want convenience, they want to be very, very close to where they have to go to their lectures every day. So location is absolutely critical. I like to have multi-lets on good transport links such as buses or trains, so it's very easy for people to get around. E is for environment. Put yourself in the shoes of a potential tenant. You've got to think, what would it be like to live in this house in this environment? So think about the rooms. The size of the rooms have got to be fairly good. You want to have at least well, if possible, a double bed, or at least a kind of a 3/4 size bed. You're going to have a chest of drawers, wardrobe, bedside table in there. If they're students, you'll also need a desk and a chair. So you've got to have a certain amount of room because someone's going to be living in this room. You'll also have some communal areas. So you might have a living room, and I like to have nice, clean, tidy environment, wooden floors, faux leather settees, so it looks comfortable and it's inviting. Also in the kitchen, you want to have a really good sized kitchen so that everyone's got their own double shelves and drawers. Good worktop space. I like to have big double cookers, so there's never going to be a pressure with the resources in the kitchen. And I have a big fridge and a big freezer. So there's plenty of space for people to store their food, ideally with their own shelf, so food doesn't really get mixed up. Really important to think about the people who are living there and how convenient is it going to be for them. The other thing is about bathrooms. I never want to have more than 3 people sharing a bathroom. Where possible, we put en suites into some of the rooms because you get a higher rent, they're easier to rent out, and it puts less pressure on the resources in the property. So environment's really, really important. And finally, T is for test market. If you're looking to buy a particular property, make sure the location's right, make sure the environment's right, but also you can test the demand in the local area before you even buy the property. So there are lots of websites such as spareroom.co.uk, Easy Roommate, Gumtree, where you can go and place adverts. You put a description up, some photos, and see what kind of inquiries you get coming through, just to check there's enough demand in the area. There's no point buying a house and setting it all up as HMO if you can't actually get the right kind of tenants into it. So always test market to make sure the area you're looking to buy, there's actually demand in the area. If you follow these guidelines, you'll be far more successful with your multi-let properties. It's a fantastic strategy. I do encourage you to try it out. I hope this video has given you a little bit of an insight into how the strategy works and how you can make great money from it.